Gravity is a constant. What goes up must come down. It is a law of physics, but it is also a law of the Carter household. Ryan Carter, 20 years old and possessed of an ego that could eclipse the sun, sat on his rooftop believing he was untouchable. He thought his words were like smoke, drifting away without consequence. He was wrong. He forgot that while he was the king of the roof, there was an emperor of the house downstairs. And the emperor didn't believe in timeouts. He believed in wood, he believed in impact, and he believed that some lessons are best learned with an audience. The golden hour on Willow Street was deceptive. It bathed the suburban sprawl in a light so soft, so forgiving, that you could almost forget the jagged edges of the people living there. The sky was a bruised canvas of violet and burned orange, the sun bleeding out over the horizon. It was the kind of evening that poets wrote about and photographers chased. For Ryan Carter, however, it was just another boring Tuesday. Ryan was 20. It is a dangerous age, old enough to know better, young enough not to care. He sat on the flat section of the Victorian roof, his legs dangling over the edge, heels drumming a restless rhythm against the red bricks. He was a handsome young man, though his face was currently marred by a permanent sneer of dissatisfaction. He wore a faded black band t-shirt and denim jeans that had cost more than his father's first car. In his hand, a bottle of artisanal soda sweated in the humidity. He took a sip, grimaced, and set it down on the slate tiles. Boring, he whispered to the chimney. Absolutely tragic. He felt trapped. He was taking a gap year that had somehow stretched into a gap life. Living under the roof of Mark Carter, a man whose spine was made of steel and whose patience was thinner than cheap paper, was suffocating. The rooftop was Ryan's escape. It was his throne. From here, everyone looked like ants. And Ryan loved stepping on ants. Below him, the neighborhood was going through its evening rituals. The smell of roasting garlic and charcoal wafted up from the barbecues. Sprinklers hissed like mechanical snakes. It was a symphony of suburbia, and Ryan decided it was time to play the conductor of chaos. The first target appeared at 6:45 p.m. Mr. Jenkins. The man was a neighborhood fixture, 80 years old, and moving with the glacial pace of a tectonic plate. He wore his usual beige cardigan, despite the heat, and navigated the sidewalk with a cane that clicked rhythmically against the concrete. Ryan leaned forward, resting his chin on the iron railing. A cruel smile tugged at his lips. Yo! Jenkins. Ryan's voice cut through the humid air. Mr. Jenkins didn't stop. His hearing wasn't what it used to be. Ryan cupped his hands around his mouth. I said HEY. You need a pit crew for that walk? At this rate, you'll be dead before you reach the mailbox. Mr. Jenkins stopped. He looked up, squinting through thick spectacles. He saw the silhouette against the setting sun. He shook his head, a gesture of profound disappointment, and kept walking. Yeah, keep walking, speed racer. Ryan laughed, taking another swig of soda. Don't burn rubber. It felt good. It felt powerful. It was a small, petty release of the frustration boiling in his gut. Next came the cyclists. In Ryan's original version of reality, these might have been kids. But this was Willow Street in 2025. These were not children. These were two men in their mid-20s, dressed in skin-tight, neon lycra that left absolutely nothing to the imagination. They rode bicycles that cost more than a small sedan, taking up the entire lane. Ryan watched them approach. Look at these heroes, he muttered. As they pedaled beneath his perch, Ryan leaned dangerously far over the rail. Hey! Lance Armstrong called, he shouted. He wants his steroids back. The cyclist on the left wobbled. He looked up, his face flushing red beneath his helmet. Grow up, man, he shouted back. Nice spandex, Ryan retorted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Does that come in men's sizes? Or are you shopping in the junior section? The cyclists sped up, their cleats clicking furiously as they tried to escape the verbal assault. Ryan cackled. He felt electric. He was the heckler, the judge, the jury. Then came Mrs. Hill. Mrs. Hill was 40, wealthy and perpetually stressed. She was struggling up the walkway with 4 grocery bags that looked ready to burst. She was a nice woman. She baked cookies for the neighborhood block party. She didn't deserve this. But Ryan didn't care about deserts. Whoa there, heavy load. Ryan hollered. Careful, Mrs. Hill. You look like a pack mule with a perm. Mrs. Hill froze, She didn't look up. Her knuckles turned white around the plastic handles. Want me to call a crane? Ryan continued, relentless. Or maybe a chiropractor. Snap, crackle, pop right. Mrs. Hill stiffened. She walked faster, nearly tripping over a sprinkler head, disappearing into her house with a slam of the door. Too easy, Ryan sighed, leaning back against the chimney. They're all so fragile. The sun was dipping lower now, turning the sky a deep, bruised purple. The streetlights flickered on, buzzing like angry hornets. Ryan was about to go inside when he saw him. A man. He looked to be about Ryan's age, maybe 22 or 23. He was walking briskly, wearing a sharp gray suit and a patterned silk tie. He carried a leather briefcase. He looked successful. He looked purposeful. He looked like everything Ryan was not. Jealousy is an ugly emotion, and on Ryan it looked particularly hideous. Hey! Suit! Ryan yelled. The man kept walking. I'm talking to you, Wall Street. Ryan stood up, gripping the railing. Nice tie. Did your grandma knit that for you in the nursing home? It looks like a kaleidoscope threw up on your chest. The insult hung in the air. Usually, people kept walking. Usually, they ignored the idiot on the roof. The man stopped. He didn't look angry. He didn't look embarrassed. He stopped dead in his tracks, turned on his heel, and looked straight up at the roof. Their eyes locked. Even from the second story, Ryan could see the cold calculation in the stranger's gaze. You talking to me? The man asked. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Ryan shot back, though his voice wavered slightly. What are you gonna do? Sue me. The man didn't answer. He didn't shout back. He simply checked his watch, adjusted his briefcase, and turned 90 degrees. He walked up the driveway. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Hey! Hey, where are you going? The man walked up the porch steps. Ryan leaned over, panic starting to claw at his throat. Yo! Dude! I was joking. Don't. Ding dong. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house. It was loud. It was definitive. Ryan froze. He stood on the roof, the cool evening breeze suddenly feeling like ice against his skin. He heard the muffled sound of heavy footsteps inside the house. Thump, thump, thump. Those weren't his mother's light steps. Those were the heavy, military-grade boots of Mark Carter. Ryan heard the front door open. He heard a low murmur of voices. He couldn't make out the words, but he heard the tone. The stranger was speaking clearly, concisely. His father was listening. Then silence. The front door closed. Ryan held his breath. Maybe Dad just sent him away. Maybe he told him to get lost. Then he heard it. The sound that every child of Mark Carter knew better than their own heartbeat. The heavy, purposeful tread of boots on the stairs. Coming up. Ryan looked at the rooftop access door. It was a flimsy wooden thing. It offered no protection. He considered jumping. But it was a 20-foot drop to the rose bushes. A broken leg versus his father's wrath? It was a toss-up. The footsteps reached the landing. The handle of the door turned. It groaned, rust, and age protesting the movement. The door swung open. Mark Carter filled the frame. He was a large man, 55 years old, with salt and pepper hair cut close to his scalp and shoulders that blocked out the remaining light from the hallway. He wore a simple gray t-shirt tucked into work trousers. In his right hand, resting casually against his thigh, was the board. It was a smooth, paddle-shaped piece of oak, drilled with holes for aerodynamics. It had hung in the garage for years. Ryan hadn't seen it since he was 18. He thought he had aged out of its jurisdiction. He was wrong. Mark stepped onto the roof. He didn't yell. He didn't look enraged. He looked disappointed, and that was infinitely worse. Evening, Ryan, Mark said. His voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder. Ryan swallowed hard. Dad. Hey. I was just enjoying the view. Is that what you were doing? Mark asked, taking a slow step forward. Because a young man downstairs tells me you were offering fashion advice and medical opinions to Mrs. Hill. Ryan laughed nervously. It was a high, brittle sound. Dad, come on. I was just joking. People are so sensitive these days. It's just banter. Mark stopped 3 feet from Ryan. The presence of the man was overwhelming. Banter, Mark repeated. Humiliating an 80-year-old man is banter? Insulting a woman carrying groceries is banter. I didn't mean anything by it, Ryan pleaded, backing up until his hips hit the iron railing. There was nowhere left to go. Mark looked at the soda bottle on the ground. He kicked it aside. It clattered across the tiles. You're 20 years old, Ryan, Mark said softly. You're a man. Or you're supposed to be. But men don't sit on rooftops throwing stones at people who are actually living their lives. I get it, Ryan said quickly. I'll stop. I promise. I won't do it again. I know you won't, Mark said. He raised the oak paddle. Because tonight, we're going to have a recalibration. Ryan's eyes went wide. He looked at the paddle, then at his father. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm an adult. You can't do that. Mark's eyes narrowed. You want to act like a bratty child? You get treated like one. You live under my roof, you eat my food, and you disrespect my neighbors? No, not in this life. Dad, please. Turn around, Mark commanded. The authority in the voice was absolute. It bypassed Ryan's logical brain and went straight to the primal part of him that knew better than to disobey Mark Carter. Dad, the neighbors, Ryan whispered, looking over the edge. They'll hear. Good, Mark said. They heard the insults. They can hear the apology. Ryan trembled. The humiliation was already burning his cheeks, hotter than any physical pain could be. But the look in his father's eyes told him there was no negotiation. This was happening. Slowly, agonizingly, Ryan turned around. He gripped the cold iron railing with white-knuckled hands. He bent forward slightly, bracing himself, squeezing his eyes shut. He was 20 years old. He was a grown man, and he was about to be paddled on the roof of his childhood home. This is for Mr. Jenkins, Mark stated. Whack. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet evening. The oak connected with the denim of Ryan's jeans with perfect, practiced precision. Ah! Ryan gasped, his hips bucking involuntarily. The sting was immediate, a sharp, electric fire that bloomed across his seat. This, Mark said, his voice calm, is for the cyclists. Whack! Ow! Dad! Ryan hissed through his teeth. The second one landed right on top of the first. The pain was layering, building a crescendo of heat. Keep your voice down, or we double it, Mark warned. Ryan bit his lip, tears pricking the corners of his eyes. It wasn't just the pain, though the pain was considerable. It was the shame. He felt small. He felt exposed. This is for Mrs. Hill, Mark said. He swung harder this time. Crack! Ryan couldn't help it. A low moan escaped his throat. He danced his feet, trying to alleviate the burning sensation that was spreading like wildfire. And this, Mark said, pausing for effect, is for the man in the tie, who, by the way, is working 2 jobs to pay for law school while you sit up here drinking soda. Whack! 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 3 in rapid succession. Ah! Dad! Okay! Okay! Ryan cried out, his composure shattering completely. He buried his face in his arms, his body shaking. Mark didn't stop. He wasn't doing this out of anger. He was doing this out of necessity. He delivered 6 more swats, firm, measured, and unrelenting. He covered the entire area, ensuring that sitting down would be a memorable experience for the next few days. The sound of wood on denim echoed down onto Willow Street. Below, Mr. Jenkins had paused his walk. Mrs. Hill was peering out her window. The man in the tie was standing by his car looking up. They couldn't see much, just the silhouette of a father and son, but they heard the distinctive sound of discipline. And, silently, the neighborhood approved. Mark stopped. The silence that followed was heavy. Ryan was panting, his forehead resting on the cool metal of the railing. His backside was on fire, a throbbing, pulsing reminder of his transgressions. Mark tapped the paddle against his own leg. Stand up! Ryan slowly straightened. He wiped his face, refusing to look at his father. Look at me, Mark said. Ryan turned. His eyes were red. His ego was bruised far worse than his body. Did I enjoy that? Mark asked. No, Ryan mumbled. Did you? No. Good, Mark said. Disrespect has a price, Ryan. You've been walking around like you own the world, but you haven't paid for a square inch of it yet. You want to be a big man? You start by treating people with dignity. Mark pointed to the door. Go to your room. Wash your face. You have a long day tomorrow. Ryan blinked. Tomorrow! Tomorrow is Saturday, Mark said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. You're going to mow Mr. Jenkins' lawn. You're going to wash Mrs. Hill's car. And you're going to write a letter of apology to the gentleman in the suit. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but the paddle twitched in Mark's hand. Yes, sir, Ryan whispered. Chapter 7. Scars and Wisdom. Ryan walked past his father, moving stiffly. He entered the house, the familiar smell of dinner, roast chicken, hitting him. But he had no appetite. He went to his room and lay down on his stomach, wincing as the fabric of his bedspread touched his sore skin. He lay there for hours, staring at the dark ceiling. The anger he expected to feel wasn't there. The resentment wasn't there. Instead, there was a strange, quiet clarity. He thought about Mr. Jenkins. He thought about the cyclists. He thought about the man in the tie. For the first time in years, Ryan didn't feel like the king of Willow Street. He felt like a citizen of it. He realized that his words had weight, that his actions had consequences. The scars from that night weren't physical. The redness would fade in a day or two. But the memory of the sound of the oak, the setting sun, and the absolute, unyielding authority of his father, that would last forever. The next morning, Ryan was up at dawn. He mowed the lawn. He washed the car. He wrote the letter. And when he saw Mr. Jenkins walking down the street that evening, Ryan didn't shout. He didn't jeer. He waved. Evening, Mr. Jenkins, Ryan called out politely. Mr. Jenkins stopped. He looked up at the rooftop, then at Ryan standing on the porch. He smiled. Evening, Ryan. Ryan sat on the porch steps, his bottom still tender, watching the sun go down. He realized that respect wasn't just something you gave to others to avoid a paddling. It was something you gave to yourself. Ending. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the rooftop heckler was retired. Ryan Carter learned that in the court of public opinion, the judge carries a paddle, and the verdict is final. But what about you? Do you think Mark went too far with his 20-year-old son, or was this exactly the kind of reality check Ryan needed? Would you have called the father, or would you have handled it differently? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, be kind to your neighbors. You never know who has a spare key to the roof.